Howdy folks, Troy with V-Twins, the V8s. I'm going to do this video. I already have the other video segment. I don't know if you watched it, how I prepped this frame and molded it in for the paint job. And this is a custom Sportster that I'm doing for Bob Zaleski at New England Choppers. He's picked out his colors. We've got it all ready to go. Today is going to be the big day. So this bike will be Oriental Blue Kandy. I've got some House of Kolor Metal Flake, some Blue Metal Flake that we're gonna put over that. Then we're gonna clear it. So it's gonna have this really bright blue, heavy metallic, almost kind of metal flaky look, but halfway in between. Not like the giant flakes you see in a bass boat, but some pretty cool stuff. So I've got my frames all prepped, all blown out, all washed. My swing arm over here is all set, all suspended. I like to paint things the way that you see them, so you'll notice my swing arms like that. That's how you're going to see it on the bike. The frame's like this. I got this weird jig that I use. I like it because it just slides on the neck. This thing sits nice and stable, and I don't really have to worry about it falling off. And when I'm done painting it, all I got to do is grab a hold of the frame and lift it off of here, and we're good to go. So I'm going to show you what I have here. I've got my my small spray gun I'm going to use to apply the sealer and the base coat. The reason I'm going to use that is because I have a lot of nooks and crannies, and I'll end up with a lot of overlap areas. This gun has a very small needle and tip, and it's a compact gun, so I can get in all the nooks and crannies, and it lessens my chance of putting too much material on. First thing I'm going to put on is SG150. That's House of Kolor Silver Sealer. It's activated by SG150. The SG150 is a couple of things. It's a sealer that gives me great adhesion between the sealer onto my substrate, which is my primer, and my base coat, or my candy, on top of the sealer. Really bites in nicely. It gives me one uniform color, and it's silver. Silver is the base that I've chosen to use underneath this blue. It'll give me the effect that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to shut this off, I'm going to mix up my silver sealer, and I'm going to lay my sealer down. Then I'll come back on camera and I'll show you the process for the base. Okay folks, so I'm back. I've applied my SG150 silver sealer. As you can see behind me, it's really brilliant silver color. It's got a lot of metallic in it, and when we put that translucent base coat over here, the candy, you'll be looking through the blue at this, so it just gives it an added pop, an added effect. So I applied it, I waited my recommended times in between coats, and then I allowed it to dry for about 45 minutes so it's dry. Now I'm going to be ready to apply my candy. So let me just show you. I'll give you a better look of the frame. So here we go here. You can kind of see this whole thing. It's all silver. One of the really important things is that we, get all of the underneath and everything of it, so that everywhere you look, it's covered with the sealer. Here's my swing arm here. You can kind of see it really good. Gone around. These reinforcements that Bob put on the bottom here are just a wicked pain in the ass to paint around, but that's what you got to do. The thing about painting a motorcycle frame is it's round and it has to be hit from a million different angles. So these parts are all set. I've got my House of Kolor Shimmering Base Oriental Blue Kandy right here. That's reduced with my RU311 because I'm at a medium temperature. And I'm going to use my small gun again. Once again, using the small gun to give myself room to move around. And because I've got all these little tiny areas to spray, I don't need a big 12, 14-inch spray fan blowing paint all over the place. It's just a waste of paint. So I can choke my gun down, I can get in all these little nooks and crannies, and that's what I'm going to do next. So I'm going to mix up my House of Kolor candy, and I'm going to apply it to this frame. Then I'm going to let this dry. I'll be letting it dry about 10-15 minutes between each coat. I did a spray out panel, so I know exactly what I want to be doing. My spray out panel I put 3 coats of the base on. That gave me the color that I wanted. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to I'm going to go ahead and mix this stuff up. I'm going to put it in my gun, and I'm going to put 3 coats of candy on this. When I come back on, our next step is to put the metal flake on it. So I'll come back on, I'll show you that, I'll show you how I mix it and what happens. Howdy folks, Troy with V-Twins to V8s back again. Next segment of the Oriental Candy paint job that I'm doing. Okay, so what you see here behind me is my frame. I've applied my base coat and I've let it dry. So now I got that dry. My frame looks really good. It's all nice and freaking blue everywhere. I went all around, all my nooks and crannies underneath, made sure that everything is all covered. Now, here's my swing arm. I did the same thing with the swing arm. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some metal flake. So what I have is I have the House of Kolor flake. Let me show you what it looks like. So there it is, right there. Basically, it just looks like a bunch of glitter, like a bunch of stuff you'd work on in art class. So to apply this, this is where things get interesting. Okay, to apply this, I'm going to use House of Kolor SG150. This is a flake carrier. So this looks an awful lot like your SG100 Intercoat Clear. I'm going to take this, I'm going to mix it 1 part SG150 with 1 part RU311 because I'm using a medium reducer. So it's 1 to 1. I'm going to put it in my cup. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to add my flake to it. Now, I've done a spray out. You do a spray panel. So what I did yesterday was I sprayed out my silver sealer. I laid on my Oriental Blue, 1 coat. I looked at that, said, okay, I need some more, 2 coats. I got to the 3rd coat and I said, that's the color I'm looking for. That's what you see over here on my frame. 3 coats of Oriental Blue. Now I wanted to figure out, you know, how much of this flake I wanted to have, what my effect was like. So if I put a lot of flake on, I could bury this right out and it'll just look like a bass boat. I could put just a little bit on there, and when you catch it in the light, you'll see a few sparkles here and there. I was trying to get somewhere in the middle, so it had almost a metal flake look, but I didn't want to lose the blue that I have. So what I did was, I mixed up some of my SG150, I took a little measuring cup, and I added my House of Kolor flake to it. I put a little bit in there, I took a look at it on the stick, see how much flake was in there, and I kept playing with it. And what I came up with was I needed to have a tablespoon of this for every sprayable part of my SG150. Now I'm figuring that I'm going to probably use about 3 parts of sprayable SG150 to do what I have going on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 tablespoons of my flake and add it to my SG150 that's already been reduced. I'm going to stir it up really good. I'm going to get everything in here ready to go. So basically I have got my hoses on my gun. My SG150's in here with the flake in it, with a stick. I'm going to not use a strainer because the strainer's going to catch my flake. So I'm going to stir it up really good. I'm going to pour it into the gun. I'm going to put the lid on the gun. I'm going to give the gun a little swizzle, and then I'm going to lay some flake down. I'm just going to spray it on. I'm going to lay a coat on. I'm going to let it dry for probably 10 minutes. When I get done spraying, after I put my first coat on, the first thing I'm going to do when I get back is take the cover off my gun, dump my flake, my SG150 and my metal flake back into my container. I'm going to take my gun and I'm going to stand in my gun stand upside down so that the cup is draining everything out. What I'm trying to do is I don't want my flake to settle in the bottom of my gun. I want my flake to be suspended in the SG150. That's why I put it back in here. So I let it flash. When I'm ready to put my next coat on, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stir up my SG150 with my flake in it. I'm going to pour it in the gun, put the cover on, and I'm going to spray it. After I'm done spraying, I'm going to come back, I'm going to dump it all back in here again, and I'm going to tip my gun upside down and let all the flake drop out of it. I'm going to wait 10-15 minutes. I'm going to repeat this process. It's very important that you drain this stuff out of here, because what will happen is all this flake will settle in the bottom of your gun. Whether you're using a gravity feed gun or a suction gun, you're going to have different problems, but you know, in essence, you're going to be spraying a lot of SG150 with no flake in it. The SG150 does a good job of suspending that flake and dispersing it evenly, but once it sits, it will sink. So that's the way we're going to do it. So I'm going to get this mixed up. I'm going to apply my flake. I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like. Folks, so Troy with V-Twins to V8s back again. Here's my frame behind me. I've applied my Blue Metal Flake to it. Things are looking really, really good. Now all I have to do is put my clear on it. So what I did was just backtrack a little bit. Is I mixed my flake with my SG150. I applied 3 coats because that's what my plan was. According to the instructions, you have to wait at least 1 hour for this to set up before you can hit it with some clear. Up to 4 hours. After 4 hours, you're going to have to sand this, and it's not something you want to do. You don't want to sand anything with SG150 and flake in it, because you're going to pull the flake and it's going to make a mess. So make sure if you commit to doing this, you want to be in that 1 hour to 4 hour window to make your application. So here we are. It's all set. One of the things I did want to reiterate after I got involved in this and started doing my spray, and I thought about it afterwards, all my application that I put on, I use my small touch-up gun with a 1.0 nozzle because it's just such a small area. I use less materials. When I went to the flake, I used my bigger gun with the 1.4 needle. The reason I did that is because the flake is larger. It needs to travel through that passageway, and the 1.0 needle is going to restrict that and cause me problems. So I did switch to the larger gun. I didn't explain that to you when I was on camera, so I just wanted to make sure that I got back to you with that. So I'm going to spray again with the touch-up gun. And once again, the reason is small areas. I'm going to be doing a lot of overlapping because of all the different angles. So it's much better to do a lot of fine overlaps than a bunch of big, huge, heavy things, because that gets you into trouble. Because every place you overlap, you have twice as much material. So if you have a small amount of material and you overlap continuously, you have less of a chance for problems, whether it be lifting, a run, or anything like that. So I'm going to get suited up. I'm going to get my clear mixed, and we're going to put 2 to 3 coats of clear on this. The application is 2 to 3 medium wet coats, a tack up in between. So apply the clear, let it tack to the touch so that it's tacky, it's not dry, but it also doesn't string. Apply a coat, let it get tacky, and then apply another coat, let it get tacky, apply the 3rd coat, and you're done. More than likely, because of the flake, this is kind of bumpy, all those little flakes are standing up on top of the surface, we're going to have to probably sand this and then reapply the clear to bury all this flake. But that'll be another day. Today will just be for the clear. I'll come back on and show you the end result. Alright folks, I'm back. I applied my 3 coats of clear, and as you can see, it's pretty banging. So what's going to happen now is, you couldn't see it on the camera, but if you really look at this, that flake some of the flakes will stand up on end instead of laying flat. So I'm going to end up sanding this again with probably a 600 grit paper, laying another 3 coats on to bury in all that flake. But basically what you're seeing is exactly what you're going to see when it's done. The only difference is it's probably going to be just a little deeper, maybe a little soft, a little smoother, but this is it. So I'm going to bring the camera over so you can take a look. And there you go. I mean, it's just it's really banging. I mean, it really came out good. The camera really probably doesn't do it justice, and the reason I say that is there's so much sparkle to this. The light just dances off of it at every angle, and I don't think you can really get that on the camera. I mean, if I get in close, you can kind of see. This is where I saved the VIN. As you can see right here, it's just bare metal, but I just cleared over it. That little spot, it'll be fine. So that's what our frame looks like. This is our swing arm over here. It's all molded in nicely. You can kind of see all the areas all nice and smooth all around, And once again, I mean, that flake just sparkles right off of there. So probably tomorrow morning, what I'll do is I'll come in here, get some 600, go over this whole thing, bang 3 coats on it, and then that's it. You don't have to do anything to it. You're not buffing this, you're not doing anything crazy like that. You're just putting the clear to it and you're done. So I'd like to get that done tomorrow, and then I can move on to my other projects. I have the tins for this bike, which is the tank and the 2 fenders and an oil tank. They're going to be the same blue like this, but there's going to be a metal flake stripe that goes down the middle. Kind of like a racing stripe, a wide, I'm thinking like a 2-inch stripe, and then 2 probably 1/4-inch stripes on the side of it, like the old racing car stripes from the 60s. So I'll come back on camera and we'll do the tins together too. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Check me out on YouTube or on my website, vtwins2v8s.com. I also sell on eBay, vtwins2v8s.com. A lot of the stuff that I paint, I put up on my website or on eBay to sell. If you have any questions or you have any problems with anything you're doing, you want to know how to do something, you can definitely hit me up, and I will do my best to get back to you and answer any questions. If you got any custom stuff that you want painted, definitely you can message me on my website or on YouTube, and we'll do whatever we can for you. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.